Big moves happening in the world of college football, so we reached out to our friend Bill Bender at the Sporting News. Bill, first things first, Les Miles, why was he fired and should he have been fired?
Well, I mean, he was fired because they lost. They're off to a 2-2 start, and, things have slid in that program over the last couple of years. But I don't think it was the right move in the season. I mean, unless you really have a plan behind it. I mean, obviously, they're probably going to go take a first swing at Tom Herman and then go from there. But, I mean, you better have a good guy in his place because that man won 77% of his ball games there.
I heard Lane Kiffin is starting to pack up his office.
Yeah, I put that one out there. I wasn't afraid to do that. I think it would be interesting. I don't know if there's a Twitter server big enough to handle a Nick Saban versus Lane Kiffin matchup if it were to come down to that.
Let's go back to the LSU-Auburn game, by the way. LSU wins that game. The game's 1 second to go. They throw the game-winning touchdown. LSU parties on the field, but then they go back and review the game, and I guess they said the snap didn't get off in time. That wasn't factored in by anybody at LSU to think, well, Les Miles actually did win this game against an SEC foe.
Yeah, and, I was filing from the press box in Knoxville, and one of the reporters in there before it happened, I can't take credit for this, he said, we're about to reach peak Les Miles before the play, and boy, did we ever. Game-ending play, the win, and they didn't win, then he gets fired the next day, and, I was covering an NFL game yesterday, and that happened in the press box, and I about had a meltdown because, trying to do an NFL story, and then you got to write about Les Miles for a couple hours. But, again, guys, I just don't think let that guy finish the season. He's done enough for that program. If you want to fire him in November, that's fine.
Ed Orgeron's been named the interim head coach. Some may remember Ed Orgeron from the movie The Blind Side as the coach that brings in Mike Lohr because of that deep Cajun voice he has there. Is there any chance Ed Orgeron could stay on past this season, at least either the head coach or as a member of that staff?
I thought you were going to say Ed Orgeron from The Water Boy with Farmer Fran, because I've seen that meme all day. I really have. And, I don't think so. I think he's a good, proven recruiter. He did a good job as an interim coach at USC, and I think he'll hold the program together. But if your answer for firing Les Miles is Ed Orgeron, you got to hit a home run, and you got to grab a rock star. And I think the two best available rock stars in college football right now are Tom Herman and Lane Kiffin. And if you want to say Chip Kelly or Art Briles, that's fine. But it's Kiffin or Herman to me.
Bill Bender of the Sporting News on the phone with us right now. So, Bill, what happens? What's next for Les Miles?
I hope TV. I wrote about that. I think he'd be a great fit, whether it be on game day or in a booth or in a studio. He's such a wildly entertaining guy. I was watching some of his press conferences this morning, or if not, maybe he goes and finds another coaching job, because if we've learned anything, and I've learned this, it's almost like a fire drill now. There's been 45 coaching changes before this season. We've already had 2 now with Ron Turner being fired as well. So there'll be jobs out there if he still wants to coach, and anybody, maybe it was time for him to go to LSU, go from LSU, but I still think he's capable of coaching a Division I football team. That's for sure.
Well, he's got that crazy habit of eating grass off the field before a game. If he was like an announcer, would he chew on the mic cord? What would he do?
Oh, I think he'd be great. I kind of joke. A go-to segment, I'm trademarking this now, is if he does end up in the studio, they got to do Les Miles 2-minute drill. I think it's a slam dunk.
The Mad Hatter himself, Les Miles. LSU is not one of the top 5 teams in the country, but if Bill Bender had to put his top 5 list together, who are your top 5 teams?
The order's negotiable. I just put Alabama number 1 because, they haven't lost and they're defending champions. I go by that principle always. And then from there, I think it's Ohio State, Louisville, Michigan, and then Houston or Clemson. And I think Clemson, Louisville is going to be a heck of a showdown this week, obviously. And then Michigan and Ohio State are very good, and I think if Michigan can beat Wisconsin, which I think they will, that we'll start barreling towards that 2006 narrative with those 2 schools because they're both very good.
Bill Bender of the Sporting News with us right here, Levack and Goz 104.5 The Team.
I'm going to follow up on that because Levack is a big Michigan fan. Are they that good? Could we really see this team that close to the 2006 team that was really just a win away from playing for the national championship?
I think defensively they have that potential. They get after the quarterback. Jabril Peppers is all right, I'm going to couch this way. Lamar Jackson's probably the best player in college football right now, I think Jabril Peppers is the most exciting player in college football. From the standpoint of every time he touches a punt, I think he's going to take it back. He should have taken one back against Penn State. He tackled himself by running so fast. And defensively, he can do just about anything. So, I mean, it comes down to Spate, and as you guys know, I mean, they've got 3 tough road games. I mean, Michigan State will look a lot better than they did against Wisconsin against Michigan, and of course, they haven't won at Ohio State since 2000. So there's a long way to go, but the potential's there.
Now, the other game that we referenced, Louisville and Clemson, Lamar Jackson versus Deshaun Watson. Like, this is a Heisman battle, right? I mean, one of these guys could get knocked out of the running altogether.
I agree, and it's huge, and there's so many implications in that game. It's Dabo, Petrino, those 2 quarterbacks. Going to be, the electric environment that you're going to get at Clemson for that game. So many things that work there, and Lamar Jackson. I know the hype's he is awesome. I mean, there's so many superlatives you can throw out there. He is that good. He's every bit as good running the football as he is throwing it, and Deshaun Watson's been there, and those are the matchups you kind of live for. I think it's going to be a fantastic game.
Bill, right here in the Capital Region in Albany, our local team, the Great Danes, is ranked in the top 25. Their next matchup is going to be against Richmond, who's going to be a top 10 team at the FCS level. And the number 1 team in the FCS is North Dakota State, and they knocked off Iowa, who is a top 15 in FBS. Like, what do you do with a program like North Dakota State? Would it be fair to rank them in the top 25? And after 5 national championships, do you believe they could be a top 25 team right now in the country, regardless of level?
Well, let's start with the obvious, that Carson Wentz is obviously the greatest quarterback ever, the way he's playing for them. Geez, I mean, good Lord, guys, 3 straight big wins, and he looks fantastic doing it. I was having that discussion with some buddies. I was like, where would you put North Dakota State in the top 25 right now? And we kind of, we were messing around with it. They'd probably be a top 20 team. I don't think they could beat every Big Ten team week in, week out, but that's a better program than half the Big Ten. And I'm comfortable saying that. And then, the top half might not be able to do it every week, but what a success story they really are. And, Carson Wentz, and I made that joke, but that helps the program recruit itself because they can just point to him and say, look at Carson Wentz right now. And that's another big cycle of recruits for them. And you anticipate that they'll win the FCS again.
Bill Bender of the Sporting News. So, Bill, on the show, one of the biggest arguments as of late, I can't get guys to saying, knowing what he knows now, Carson Wentz should have went before Jared Goff.
Oh, I think it's a slam dunk. I would have taken Wentz over him. I would, but don't listen to me because I actually was telling people I would take Connor Cook over both of them, and he's not. I mean, just because I trust guys that win big on the college level, and I'll give you an example. And not that this isn't an I told you so by any stretch, but the fact that Dak Prescott is having success does not surprise me because what he did at the college level was elevate Mississippi State. And I look at guys like Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, Phillip Rivers even. When they're at the programs like NC State, Purdue, and Cal were really good. So when that happens, I tend to think, if they did that at that program in the Power 5, they're probably going to be pretty good at the next level.
Bill, we'll edit that wrong answer out. Don't worry about it. We'll edit that out.
Gaz is just silly. He doesn't understand that Wentz is what's up right now.
Bill, we'll ask you where you are this weekend. What games are you covering?
I'm going to be at Michigan, Wisconsin. It's a top 10 showdown, and we're trying to stretch our map out as best we can. And I think that's going to be, if you're into Big Ten, old school smash mouth football, which I grew up around my whole life, you're going to enjoy that game. I think they're both going to go at it. And Wisconsin's defense, by the way, is very good. So wait a minute. And you guys are saying Goff over Wentz is exactly what you would have done?
No. Here's the thing. Now, Levack says as of right now, he would take Carson Wentz over Jared Goff. My argument is that we haven't seen Goff play. Like, if he goes 9 for 23 and throws 2 picks, I'll concede my point. But until we see Goff or even Paxton Lynch play, I can't say they're terrible quarterbacks. They haven't played.
My only argument back is I don't know how many quarterbacks have beat Ben Roethlisberger head-to-head like that. And I know it's not, Wentz isn't going against Ben Roethlisberger, but I always look at quarterback showdowns as Old West gunfights. And that's kind of where, he's playing fantastic football right now. And, I hope you guys are ready for that Carson Wentz versus Trevor Siemian Super Bowl.
We're going to be in Houston. So if it happens, we will be ready for it. Bill, I even gave him the out of knowing what you know now, and you need a quarterback to start week 1. You take him. He still won't agree with me.
Oh yeah. I mean, I would take Wentz. But Goff, like you said, we haven't seen him play. I'm sure we will at some point. And, it's just increasingly hard to, I was the guy a couple of years ago. I know that it was Winston Mariota was back and forth. And I liked Winston all the way through college. I still like him, even though he's really up and down, isn't he? I mean, one week it's 4 touchdowns, next week it's 4 picks. But I like Winston long term.
His name is Bill Bender from the Sporting News. So when you're at Michigan, just keep an eye on the most important side story. Will he or will he not Harbaugh eat a booger on the sideline?
Yeah. You mean I don't even really have to write anything. I just have to write Jim Harbaugh in like 2 paragraphs and people will read it. It's easy pages, guys.
Bill, we appreciate you. Thank you, have a safe trip, my man.
I appreciate it, guys. Thanks anytime.